Okay.
Everybody, welcome to this list matchup review for the Socal Joust 2022. That tournament is taking place this next weekend, July 30th and 31st in beautiful Pasadena, California. We have 22 people signed up at the moment. It's a standard 4,500 point grand tournament for the ninth age. So we're going to be going through each of the lists. We're going to be talking about how each of the lists are going to match up against each other, at least for round one. We're not going to go super into detail. We're not going to read off every single unit. If you want to check out Skaven and Aziz's video, he actually went through every single list and read them off. But we're going to keep it more about the matchups, and we're also going to mention some MVP units. I have a few people joining me today. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sure. Josh Land here. I'm playing Vampire Covenant at the tournament. And that's, looking forward to it.
I'm Rob Rogers. I'm normally an ogre player, but this time I will be playing vampires, but pretending they're ogres, which won't go well. But that's what I will probably be doing.
All right, and I'm Tim Simpson. I don't have a camera, so save you all the trouble of looking at me.
You don't want to
I
look at
play Infernal. Yeah, I know you don't. I play Infernal Dwarves lately, but I've also run Empire and Dwarves in the past for many, many years.
All right, we might have a few other people jump on halfway through the video, if time allows. So starting with table one, we have Lucian Warren and Joel. And Lucian is from the Pasadena area. He's playing Kingdom of Ekatang, and then Joel is from the, I want to say, Sacramento area, and he's bringing Vampire Covenant. So looking at the Equitane list, he's got two pretty beefy lords. He's got two damsels, one on Druidism, one on Shamanism. He's got some archers, a big unit of spear and shield levies, and then two bricks of knights, one brick of Pegasus Knights, a reliquary, and a chaff unit. And then looking over at the Vampire Covenant, Josh, do you want to run us through the basics of that one since you're kind of more familiar?
Yeah, Joel has a whopping 5 vampire courtiers. All wizard apprentices, it looked like. These are all 1+ armor save, kind of just good combat, weaker magic. Big unit of ghouls, some chaff, and a couple units of knights and a few other kind of things thrown in there. So like his list overall. Couple questions, but do like the list as a whole.
So on the vampire side, he's got, I think, only 3 scoring units, and 2 of them are the knights, which are probably where I think some or perhaps all of the courtiers are going to be in with the knights. It would make 2 7-strong units with the vampires. He could cowboy them, but they're all kind of, I don't want to say they're weak vampires because they're not, but they're not tough enough, I think, to be cowboys. They don't have
Depends on the matchup.
Yeah, I mean, Lou doesn't really have any range damage output to hunt him down, so they can kind of run around free as long as they don't wander in front of that hippogriff.
Yeah. Lou's hippogriff is going to be a problem, I think. I mean, it's just that thing's so tough to bring down, and it can put in some serious work. I like I said, I like what Joel is going for. A lot of 1+ armor saves. If you don't have Panthers to 1+ armor, you're gonna have a hard time with this list. I don't understand the ghouls. Not much magic support there, but hopefully they work out well for him. And also the race, no movement magic support for the race. So those are I'm wondering what's going on there. But everything else, I think is going to put in some serious work for sure.
I mean, yeah, you're right. He doesn't have a lot of. He doesn't have really much to give things autonomous.
So
just
a bunch of wizard apprentices. It looks like he's going to have to take like 1 breath of corruption and 4 arises.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's because it's not repeatable. So.
And on Lou's side, I don't know much about Aquitaine, I'll be honest, but most people I think are taking those folk heroes, and I don't see one there.
Yeah, I'm not an expert
I
on
don't know. I'm
the
not
new
either,
book
so.
as well. I've read through it just to kind of be ready to go for the tournament, but it's not something I'm an expert on, I'll be honest as well, on the new book.
So we're gonna make a prediction?
Well, I'll mention as well that this tournament uses custom scenarios. They're out of the supplement book on the Ninth Age website. And the round one scenario is a table quarter deployment. And the scoring is how many table quarters you control at the end of the game. And so I'm worried here that it's going to be a big turn one advantage for either of these armies because they'll be able to fan out and kind of get set up with controlling the board, and the other player will be kind of stuck in a corner. So we'll see how that kind of plays out. But you guys want to start with your predictions?
Yeah, let me get some here, my list going. Okay, so round one prediction. I think I'm gonna give it to Lou, but it's not that we're predicting scores, but I think it will be a closer game. I'm gonna say like a 13-7 type of victory for Lou here on Kingdom of Aquitaine.
Yeah, I think it's gonna be about the same because I think Lou's gonna get the secondary objective. And they're both gonna kill a lot of each other's stuff. But I think Lou will get the secondary, and so that's what'll make it a 13-7. And I think his MVP is probably gonna be that guy in the Hippogriff.
Yes, all right. I
There's
forgot to
nothing
say
that-
MVP. I agree for sure.
Yeah.
Equerton Lord for sure. I think will be the MVP for Lou.
I'm going to disagree on the MVP only because I've seen Luke play this army so many times, and he never ceases to amaze me with the garbage dice he will throw when he's fielding that guy. But I think that Lou's army is a little less charge dependent, perhaps, with the levies and with the Knights of the Quest. And I think that he will have a much easier time with the objectives. So I'm going to go with a smaller victory for Aquitaine as well.
I'm going to be the contrarian, and I'm going to go for Vampire Covenant because he has 1, 2, 3, 4, potentially 5 units of chaff. And any of those chaff units can get into the archer units and either tie it up or get lucky and break it. And if he can fan out and cover the board in such a way, Lucian's not going to be able to pick any charges that he can really want or succeed with. And then Joel's got all the counter charge in the world with all those vampire courtiers. And I think it was Tim saying earlier that the Aquitaine list does not really have much shooting, and any shooting is only AP0, AP1. And so he could fan out those 5 courtiers if he wanted to, and they could all be individual cowboys. He could even sacrifice one if he wanted to. And with his magic setup, he's going to throw dice and try and get the Breath of Corruption every turn. And then he's going to spam 3 or 4 arises, and he's going to get 1 through wherever he, can get it through. And so it's almost like he doesn't have to worry about the magic phases, kind of just plays itself. So that's my prediction. I'm predicting like a 12 or 13 for Joel. And maybe that's a 12 or 13, even having not won the objective.
Do you, and who MVP for Joel?
For Joel, I think it's going to be the Vampire Spawn. Because I think those can give trouble to his knight units. I think they can give trouble to any of his peasants.
Yeah, those are, if anything, actually, those are the one unit that are susceptible to lose shooting. They have no armor, no saves, no nothing. So whereas the knights are practically a waste of time to shoot, those can, if you concentrate enough shots on them, they could you could do a little bit of damage. But there's such good movement, you can really throw them off to the side and get them away from that if you need to.
All right, we good for table 2?
Yep.
Okay, so we have Garrett playing Saurian Ancients. Garrett is one of my club members down here in kind of North Orange County. And then Tom playing Sylvan Elves, and I think Tom is one of your Agora Hills
Yeah.
Pasadena group, right?
Tom's from our group. He's I mean, he's been playing Warhammer for 25 years, so he's a smart guy. He knows what he's doing.
So I can break down the Saurian Ancient list. I play Garrett quite a lot. He
Mhm.
really wanted to bring Saurian Ancients kind of one last time before they get their update for the new book, whenever that comes out.
Mhm.
But he's got basically two big bricks, one of the Saurian Warriors, Spear Crocodile, and then one of Temple Guard. And he's got a huge beefed up 900 point quaddle that can go Alchemy or Pyromancy. And then a big buffed up Saurian Warlord. So just on foot, that's going to go in one of those units. And then he has a Taurosaur and then a bunch of chaff. And so he's going to have to really push those two units up. That's kind of what his list does. And then the huge magic phase. And then anybody want to break down Sylvan Elves? I'm not super familiar with them.
Yeah, Tim, you probably know his list better than I do.
I've played against it frustratingly once. But other than that, I don't know Sylvan Elves that well. But he's got a guy on a great elk that hits like a truck. He's got the two on foot. You know, one's a shooty character. He's got his little wizard apprentice. His other magic is the Wizard Conclave Briar Maidens. He's got a big unit of Forest Guard that he's going to try and teleport around using the forests, and then the miscellaneous archers and Thickabees. And it's really just kind of a tricky army to play against, especially if you get the wrong terrain set up. You know, like I said, I played one game against this, and it looked very soft, and I thought I was just going to take it apart, and it didn't work that way. Looking at Garrett's list, though, I think Garrett has the tools to take it apart. He's got pyromancy. He's got a lot of light shooting, which can work great against elves. And I don't know that Tom's shooting and will really be able to chip away at those two blocks. I think Tom will pick up some of the little stuff, but it's going to be hard for him to take apart especially the Warriors and Temple Guard.
Yeah, there's not a lot of points to get out of Garrett's list unless you really have to take on at least one of the big units. And if you can't do that, it's hard to see. It's really hard to see winning a game without killing one of those big units.
Now, I guess the Skink Braves are scoring, aren't they? The little 15 Skink Brave unit?
Yeah, they are.
Okay, because I was going to say he only has 2 scoring units. Although I assume that the 15 Skink Braves will probably be toast at some point in the game.
Yeah, well, I think this is going to be a good game. I guess we should probably go to predictions to stay on our roughly 5 minute per. I'm gonna give it's tough. Because Tom's a really good player. I know Garrett's a good player too. He knows what he's doing. I think it'll be a good matchup. If I was a spectator, this would be one of the games I'd really love to watch. I'm gonna go Garrett though. Sorry, Tom. I'm gonna go Garrett but not a big victory. I just think it looks like it's gonna be hard to get those some of those big units for Tom there.
I'm gonna have to also go with Garrett. I don't know a lot about Saurian Ancients. I have been looking at it a lot, but I do play against Sylvan Elves quite a bit, although not a list that looks a lot like this one. I just don't see where he's got the answer for those 2 units, which are like 2,700 points between the 2 of them.
Yeah.
So they're just going to be sitting there. And in terms of cleaning up the small stuff, I think they can both kind of do that. It just sort of depends on who gets positioned. You know, like if he can get anything into the archers, they just melt. So I'd have to go with Garrett. As far as the MVP, I think it's going to be that Temple Guard unit with the board, and that's just not going in.
I was going to say the Saurian Warrior unit for me on MVP. What those block units are going to put in some work, I think.
Yeah.
You know, the one thing that might, I mean, I'm probably going to say Garrett as well, but depending on, Tom won't be able to probably pick off those 2 big units, but if he's clever, he can probably keep them from doing a lot of damage as well. And this could maybe be a very low scoring game of just them picking off each other's little units and then maybe an objective. If it comes to that, I think Tom has now he's got 1, 2, 3. He's only got 4 scoring units.
Mhm.
Because he's the dryads or the clearing spirits are not scoring.
He can though put that forest, do the teleporting forest trick.
Right.
Into Garrett's deployment zone, and that's going to be hard to do anything about.
Right. Assuming that
Everything's still alive at the end of the game.
yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know how. I mean, he's got relentless company on both those units, so he can kind of get him where he wants to go. It's just whether he can catch him. I guess I'm used to playing dwarves. Chasing elves is never fun. Lizard men aren't that much faster.
I'm going to cast my vote for Garrett as well, but I think this match more than a lot of the other ones, the role for picking side will be really important. Because if Garrett can win that role and pick a corner that has no forest in it, I think the forest follows, you have to put it in your table half, right? Or even your deployment zone.
Oh, I don't know.
Not sure on that one.
I'll tell you in about 2 seconds.
Yeah, I don't think you could drop it in your opponent's deployment zone. So if Garrett can do that, then that takes away that trick for Tom. And Tim, like you mentioned, he's got those 2 really kind of fast, relentless company banner units that can really push up and corner the wood elves.
So
if they could play it right.
So the forest follows might be a question for you as the TO. So it says it has to be entirely within his half of the battlefield.
Yeah, so since it's table corners, we draw the diagonal line,
Okay.
and that's the half of the board.
I don't know that much about it, but isn't Sacred Seeds, doesn't that allow you to throw a forest, basically?
He's got to be there, I think.
I know he's got to be there, yeah.
Mhm.
It's an inch away.
Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so everyone is Garrett, Saurian Ancients on number 2. And we all kind of agree that the big blocks are going to be MVP for the most part, one of those big blocks.
Just for a lack of ever dying.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay, table 3.
Yep.
Okay, Max, and Max is
He's in our group too.
your group, and then Micah, who Micah's from the Sacramento area.
Yeah.
So Max is playing Orcs and Goblins, and then Micah's playing Dread Elves. And Josh, you want to talk about the Orcs and
Yeah,
Goblins?
I can talk obviously about Orcs and Goblins. So I like Max's list a lot. You know, the Orc Shaman Master, this is very, very similar to what I've used in the past. Iron Orc on foot only makes sense if you're using a big Iron Orc block, which he's got. I like how he's got his Iron Orc built. That's going to be a really tough guy to kill. He's toughness 6, got a 5+ Aegis. You know, he's like strength 8 and then 9 if you start getting into combat with characters. He can steal your armor reward. He gives the unit stubborn, leadership 9 rerolled. You got the Orc Chief below. That's a really, really tough unit of Iron Orcs. I mean, holy smokes, they're fighting in 3 ranks. Mikinox Totem, you can disable 1 magic item in base contact. That's a really tough unit, but you got, I'm guessing, you know, 1,500 points or so if he puts both characters in that unit. You know, got a 30 feral orcs with spears and shield, 20 feral orcs, paired weapons. I don't know, got green tide in both. I don't like green tide in the smaller unit. I like everything else in his list. I don't understand green tide in the 20 orc unit. So that's fight an extra rank. Orcs are slow. You know, you're usually not going to strike first. It's hard to see getting value there. You know, nice, you know, the trolls, 3 trolls can put in some work. The git launchers are going to be really solid against Micah's list, I think. The Dread Knights, the Obsidian Guard are just, I think, just sitting ducks to what the git launcher could do. I really like, Micah's really strong player. But I really, on paper, I like Max's list against Micah's list on paper. And then I'll let someone talk about the Dread Elves.
I can go through the Dread Elves. He's got a guy on a Manticore with Witchcraft, and the Witchcraft attribute's super good for Dread Elves, give them the extra speed. And then he's got a Exarch with Divination. And I think the Divination is going to help because he does not have, as far as I know, a BSB. And so he's going to want to hand out those leadership buffs. And then besides that, he's got some monsters, he's got some chaff, and then he's got a lot of really like MSU units, like units of 10 Obsidian Guard, a small unit of spears, smaller units of, you know, Temple Militants, 21 of those. And so I think he's going to really play really cagey and kind of death by 1,000 cuts. And like you said, Micah's a really strong player, so he can play that style and have success with it. But my worry here is that this game is going to be really dicey. If the green hide catapults get a few lucky shots, they could be game over, right? All it takes is a few wonky dice rolls, and the MSU no BSB Dread Elf list can kind of crumble.
I think those Nasher wrecking teams could be an issue since he doesn't really have a way to take them off other than letting them do their thing.
Yeah, and rule question, does the Witchcraft attribute spell trigger the Temple Militants Blades of Durag? The +1 movement.
I think in the Witchcraft attribute, I think it has a stipulation for the max of modifiers.
It does because I know Micah, I'm sure he thought it, because I look at the Witchcraft and I'm like, well, he's got these 2 big blocks of Temple Militants, but Witchcraft doesn't have really any buffs except for the attribute. So I'm assuming the attribute triggers the Blades of Durag buff, but I didn't know for sure. I just know that he's already, I'm sure, thought that ahead. So otherwise he's relying on the divination only to get the buffs on.
It says
Right.
non-attribute spells.
No, it is not. So okay, so relying on divination. Okay, yeah. You don't see a lot of Witchcraft Wizard Masters. So
Raven's Wing is augment. That's it though.
And you wouldn't be able to cast it in combat anyway.
Right.
But I don't know how much he really needs to. This is a strange situation that Max doesn't. It's strength or toughness 4 across most of his stuff, but he doesn't have the big monsters with the high toughness. The militants are already at least wounding on 4s with no buffs.
With nothing, correct? Yeah, they'd be
So
2s.
he doesn't need to stack that many buffs on them.
They could really mess up the Feral Orcs if they got that though, because they're striking first. They're 2s to hit, 2s to wound. The Feral Orcs get basically crap for save. So the 21 Temple Militants could really put in some work. I don't know. I don't see how. I just don't see how Micah can do much to the Iron Orc unit. But I don't think he needs to win. There's a lot of points out there.
He probably won't fight it if he'll probably try and avoid it.
I don't see how he could fight that unit without a seriously buffed up something, I guess. But he doesn't. I guess want to go to predictions.
It's all, I agree with what you said, that I think Max's list is better against Micah's list. I think that the list matchups would favor Max. Micah is such an intimidating player to play against.
Yeah.
I never want to bet against him.
Yeah, I hear you.
But I think it could be a really cagey close game.
Yeah, I'm the same. Like if I didn't know, it's nothing taken, not taking anything away from Max. He's a solid player. If I didn't know, if I just saw these 2 lists, I'd pick the Orcs and Goblins. But I've played against Micah. He's a very top-notch player, and so I would take him to win this. But I think it'll be a good game.
I've played Orcs and Goblins for years. Going back into the previous game. I keep coming back on all these to the scenario. It's a different scenario than a normal one. I think in a normal one, getting across the board simply to fight with each other, I think the Orcs and Goblins list has an advantage. I think in this scenario, which is a lot of movement, a lot of fast movement, scoring units that move, I think, again, I think the Dread Elves are gonna take the scenario and therefore win a close game.
Mhm.
That's how I see it.
Oh yeah, and I forgot to say my MVP. I'm gonna give the Gorgons MVP. They can really put in some work.
They're always a safe bet for MVP.
Yeah, they sure are.
I'm going with the wrecking teams.
My
For
vote
okay.
is Dread Elves and then the Manicore. Warlock Outcast and Manicore, I think,
Yeah,
will be the
Got it.
MVP.
All right,
all right.
table 4.
Okay, Josh Curran, who's from the Sacramento area, and then Ryan Potter, who's from Gora Hills area. We got
Mhm.
Warriors against Demons. This is going to be a really fun
Mhm.
match to watch for sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Will or Rob want to do Josh's list, and then Tim or I are very, very knowledgeable on Ryan's list.
I just played this list 48 hours ago.
So the Warriors, this is a pretty standard, solid Warrior list. I mean, the Feldrak Ancestor is just, good luck with that. And then he's got a lot of magic for, especially for Warriors. He's got that Master of Occultism, which can really just, I mean, if he starts getting off, pentagrams and things like that, it's really going to mess up all this, 5-up save demons. I mean, the demons are harsh, but they die pretty quickly if you can get into them, especially with stuff that's really got really good armor. So I don't know, that Warrior list is very tough, and I gather this is a very strong player. So he's been playing Warriors forever. Whenever I look at a tournament, he seems to be in it, and he seems to be playing Warriors. So
I played Josh before. He's he's a solid player. He knows what he's doing. He's been playing a long time, and he follows the game very closely. I think Josh and Ryan are respectively about equal skill level, and I say that as they're both solid players who know what's going on with the game.
Looking at Ryan's list, I think that if I when I saw they were playing each other, I tried to run the numbers and I never did it of what actually trumps the other in combat, the Ancestor or the Scourge.
Scourge
there's-
4+ ward per 8
That's
has got
yeah, I think the Scourge takes him too because of the ward. Which would be an interesting fight to see how it plays out.
Yeah,
Although Josh has the occultism to beat him up beforehand.
Yeah, it depends how much work occultism does. All the mirrored scales are just going to be, I think, such a difficult thing for Josh to deal with. He's got
He
some
isn't.
occultism, but
Yeah, and Josh doesn't have. I mean, when I play Ryan's mirrored scales, I mean, what I use to beat him is lots of auto hit stuff, stomps, impact, grind, etc. Josh doesn't really have any of that. He's got to beat him up with conventional attacks.
Yeah.
And his attacks, unfortunately for him, are very good. So they're gonna hurt they're gonna get through his own armor too.
Yeah, like the Chosen, it's if he uses the paired weapons, that's gonna do nothing against the Hoarders. But if he uses great weapons, he hits himself and starts killing himself, and and the Myrmidons are also going to have both mirrored scales because each is going to have a Harbinger in it. So, the 3 main units have mirrored scales. The Feldrax with halberds hitting themselves, So, yeah, I mean, what are your thoughts, Will?
Yeah, I think the Demon Legions have it, and because of the scenario as well, they can kind of just set up on the board and just kind of hold the line. They don't really have to do a whole lot of movement once they're in those 2 other table quarters. And then anything the Warriors send in is at risk of grinding itself out.
Yeah, so I'm gonna go. I think I'm gonna go Demons on this one. I think Demons are gonna, and I think the Scourge also. He's got the Grave Calls, but other than the Grave Calls, I don't see a really great answer to deal with the Scourge. I mean, so Ryan just wants to dispel that or try to dispel that. I mean, the Scourge can just kind of run wild, I feel like. I'm gonna go Demons in Ryan.
I think I'm leaning
MVP
toward
too well.
demons as well.
And so I keep forgetting to do MVP. I'm gonna go Hoarders MVP on this one.
I think that a big part of this match, I'm curious if this match will just be a horrible bloodbath in the middle, which was my first thought, or now that I'm thinking about it, if it's just going to be a real of they're not going to touch each other because, like Will said, they're just not going to want to put their foot forward first into the other army. It could potentially be a real low scoring game because of that too. But I think I'm going to go with the demons just because I think that the Scourge beats the Ancestor. Although that Veil Walker Occultism Lord is a frightening thing.
Yeah.
And I think one of those two will be the MVP for whoever wins. It'll either be the Veil Walker or the Scourge will be the MVP.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's just because I play Warriors more often, but that, especially as you said, that Sorcerer Veil Walker is scary. Really scary. It can do so much damage and take wounds off something before the other stuff gets in, and you weaken a little bit before Warriors get there, and you're in real trouble. But I can't really pick because I wouldn't want to play either of these, so I can't really pick a winner. So I'm going to pass on this one.
All right, table 5.
Will, who did you have as
I had demons, and then I think for the MVP, I'll probably do the Scourge.
okay. Got it. All right. Yep. Table 5.
Okay, Carrie, who's from the Sacramento area, and then Devin, who's another one of my clubmates from the Orange County area. And Warriors, Dark Arts for Carrie, and Dwarven Holds for Devin. I can talk about the Dwarven Holds if someone wants to do Warriors.
Yeah, I mean, I'll do Warriors. Not an expert on them, but I've played lists like this. So it's got a Doom Lord, really decked out Doom Lord with Death Cheater. Looks like maybe we're talking 1 or 2 plus armor, Death Cheater, 4 plus fort. A couple wizards. Enough magic to get some decent things through, but not overwhelm you. It looks like. Couple warrior, but a couple standard units of warriors, great weapons, warhounds, and then a bunch of big forsworn. I'm assuming the Doom Lord goes in there. I think it gives them stubborn, bunch of wretched ones, forsaken ones. So lots of coming back to life type of stuff. So this seems like an annoying list to deal with as an opponent. A lot of stuff coming back. It's going to be sticky. It's really hard to kill that Doom Lord. Although Tim could kill the Doom Lord pretty easily, I'm sure. A bunch of flaming stuff.
Love Death Cheater.
But yeah, no, I mean this looks like a good list.
It's a very random list with all the random movement. It could play either way. It could all work well for him, or he gets a couple of those big wretched 1 units, rolls a real inconvenient roll and throws him in a bad spot fast.
I'll mention too that Carrie is a great painter. He won best painted at the Joust last time. I don't know if he brought Warriors, but I remember he had a lot of converted banners and lots of other little things that really added to the favor.
I think he won best painter at Masters too, didn't he?
I think he might have.
Yeah, he has that 40K. I don't know if he has it here, but he has that 40K Chaos Helldrake that he used. It was one of the prettiest models I think I've ever seen anybody have. So yeah.
One thing that I think will help carry a lot here is that the dwarf build with his combat units looks like he's making use of the shield wall mechanic. And if I remember correctly, it does not work against special attacks. Yeah, and a lot of Carrie's offense is grind and stomp. And that's going to give him an easy way to get rid of those 2 big block, or easier way rather. Well, then again, the wretched ones are AP 0, aren't they?
Yeah, but the dwarfs I think only have a 3 or 4 up, which is not, you can fail those pretty quickly.
Right. It's 3 up for the Deep Watch and 4 up for the Greybeards.
I played Devin's list. Well, you mentioned probably play it a lot, Will, I would imagine.
Yeah, he's played the same kind of variation of this list for a long time. he kind of recently got into using the organ gun. He hadn't used that for a while, and I think the organ gun and the cannon are going to really have to do work here. If they don't, then he's in real trouble. Because besides that, he's got 2 units of 10 handgunners, which are decent, but they might not be good against the high toughness monsters. And then his 2 bricks are going to sit there, and the warriors are going to be able to pick the charges they want. So,
Well, they make
dicey.
the 2 actual warrior units will, but the warrior army doesn't get to pick what it wants. It just kind of steps forward and hopes for the dice. With the
Right.
bottom half of his list, anyways.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got a lot of random movement. Some one turn of bad dice rolls, which we've all had countless times. Could really end up putting him in positions that he doesn't want to be in. One thing that Devin has is that I like is actually those steam copters that he has are amazing, annoying chaff unit that can get anywhere and do all sorts of things that dwarves shouldn't be able to do. And then I'm still having nightmares about that Seekers unit, which I thought, oh, I'll just bust through that. It took like 3 turns for my ogre bruisers to get through it, and by then it was too late. So yeah, all it takes is one of those little guys to be left, and you're just sitting there staring.
Yeah, the Unbreakables just.
Yeah,
Such
we're
a
gonna see more of
pain.
that in a few minutes, I think.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to Daryl's list. That looks like a fun list to play against.
You have a different definition of fun than I do.
Well, should we do predictions?
I predict Devin with like an 11 or 12. I think he's gonna risk losing the objective, but take advantage of the table setup and just form a gun line. And I think he's going to be able to pull it out. He's pretty lucky with his artillery.
Yeah, I'll say.
Yeah,
I also am going to go with Devin. I think he's just going to park in his own zone and maybe one of the others and just say, come and get me. And it's going to be hard to do with all that shooting. I mean, he's really good at concentrating his fire on one thing at a time. Yeah, I think it's gonna be tough, but I also think it's gonna be a very low scoring game.
I'm going to go with dwarves for the sole reason of their MVP at the very top of the list.
Yeah,
Never underestimate the dwarf kings. I think all of these multiple wound things in Carrie's list, that king doing D3 wounds is going to be very helpful.
Yeah, I was leaning towards dwarves too on this. So yeah, and I'll pick actually a little bit different. I'm going to say the marksman units are really going to just put in a lot of work. I'm going to say collectively the 2 marksman units will be the MVP. Mix it up a little bit. So, but
I think
dwarves.
I'm gonna take the artillery units. The 2 artillery units is my MVP. Devin rolls a ridiculous number of. Will's laughing because he knows it's true.
So the MVP is really his dice.
Yeah. That's the real MVP in every game, though. But yeah,
True, but
yeah,
that's boring to just say dice every game. We got to pick something. All right, table 6.
Hey, we got Josh Stewart, Red Elves, and then we got Chris Hines, Skaven with his Vermin Swarm, and this is the only grudge match where these 2 call each other out, and we set it up that way. So
who wants to grudge match Josh?
Yeah,
Chris does. Yeah,
Chris does.
I'm a Vermin Swarm are probably my least knowledgeable army in the whole game. I've spoken with Josh Stewart. We talk strategy a lot, and so I'm familiar with his list. Josh arguably one of the best players there. So I mean, it almost doesn't even matter what his list is. He's gonna perform well. It's got let's see, the Exarch with alchemy, Dread Prince, Essence of Mithril, good save there. I know he's a big fan of the Warlock Outcast, the Master Cosmology, so a lot of good magic going on. Battle Standard, Aether Icon. you know, big unit of spears, some shooting units. Of course, what Dread Elf player doesn't play the Gorgons? A lot of acolytes that you know, with a couple magic buffs. I believe the acolytes have Blades of Durag, right? So that's why he likes to use cosmology for all the buffs. I know he's a big fan of the repeater batteries. So just I mean, just a good all around list. It's got a little bit of everything: good combat, fast movement, magic, shooting. So I mean, very all around list that that I think Josh has here.
And if Josh takes it, I mean, it must be worth taking. That's how I kind of look at it. Like,
Yeah.
this is not the same list I've seen him run before. I mean, like the last time I saw, he had his big characters on chariots. Now they're on, now they're not, but I don't think it makes much of a difference.
Mhm.
Vermin Swarm, I actually just played for the first time since they were Skaven. My hardest thing with them is figuring out what they are, because the names don't match up to anything I remember.
It's like they took a name generator and put Roman as one category and like rodents as the other, and just
Right,
went ham and just made all
right,
this.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I'm amazed there isn't one named Shredder.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
still working on it.
still working on it. Yeah, it's not gold yet, so maybe Shredder will show up. He does not have the big scary dictator, which is, at least in the game I played, which is against Stewart, it's what made the whole list work, is that 18-inch general bubble, because outside the general bubble, this stuff just melts. But he's got a lot of it, so
I
I
mean,
don't know.
I obviously Josh is coming off of lots of winning, but Chris's army might be a problem for it, in that
Yeah.
it's just the sheer volume of bodies
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the Doomspark devices, the stalkers, like all this,
Mhm.
that light shooting with the voluminous amount of shots he has. You know, that's what you need to pick apart Dread
Yeah.
Elves.
right.
I was
And
speaking with
and you
Josh.
know, Josh is, wins most of his games, but Chris knows what he's doing too.
Yeah,
And
he
if he can keep his units from keep Josh out of his flanks basically, and
Yeah.
not break that way, I think he's in a good spot.
Yeah,
And he's
Josh
got a
didn't
ton of
like
magic
this
to do
matchup
too.
for himself. In some just chats I had with him, he said this is going to be a tough matchup for his Dread Elves. There's a lot of shooting that, in his words, and I'm not an expert on Vermin Swarm, so but in his words, that will be very good against Resilience 3 units.
Hmm.
Which obviously that's, you know, that's Elf's major weakness. You know, so he said that this is going to be a tough matchup for him.
Yeah.
Now, with that said, predictions, I'm not going to, you know, I know Chris knows what he's doing. He's a solid player, but I'm not going to vote against Josh Stewart on winning. So I'll still pick Stewart.
I'm gonna do MVP of Doomsparks, and I'm gonna go with Chris.
Mhm.
I can't pick against Josh until I see him lose. And I also, my MVP, I think, is going to be that Cosmo Master. If he
Yeah,
can
I'm gonna
get some of those
go.
big
Yeah,
Cosmo spells off.
Warlock Acolytes for me.
Yeah.
The Warlock
Yeah.
Acolytes, they have that good Aegis save. They're really fast. They're going to get in there and they're going to cause all types of problems, kill a bunch of the war machines, and just be really freaking annoying. So Warlock Acolytes for me.
Doesn't have any war
He
machines.
doesn't have any war machines.
Oh, well, the Doomspark devices or whatever.
Well, those are chariot kind of things.
You know, whatever. They're close enough.
I have
They,
no idea.
they grind you in combat, so you don't
Oh,
want to fight.
is that the
those.
little
Okay.
wheel? Is that what used
Yeah,
to be like
that's
the
the
wheel
Doom
thing?
wheel.
That's the wheel. Okay, all right. Well,
Okay.
those were what I was thinking of when I
All right.
when I was saying that the Warlock Acolytes will, you know, quickly maneuver and take some stuff out.
And also Chris's army is huge, and this is only a table quarter setup. So
True.
it's going to be kind of jimmied in there pretty hard. Like, not
Yeah.
everything's going to be front line.
It's gonna have some issues. That's a good point.
And they're also going to be next to each other. So if he can get some panic checks going, I mean, like slaves and stuff, you know, well, this one should be a fun one. I'd watch this one if I wasn't already playing.
Yeah.
From a
Sure.
distance, though. I think I'd watch it from a distance.
My vote is for Josh, and there's a few factors. One, we're playing at a public store, and so he's going to be stone cold sober.
That's
And,
not true.
Well, it's pretty
Well-
early. This is the first one in the morning, I think is.
Right,
Yeah.
in round one, so
Yeah,
he's not
early
gonna have
morning.
much,
Yeah.
right? And then Chris is gonna be tired from the drive from Arizona.
And we'll hear,
I-
we'll hear about that on his post game, about how tired he was.
But I mean, Chris, I think he has the tunneling tools. And that could be a big deal in this game, but it's almost like a double-edged sword because he can really get those units out there, but then they're outside of the leadership bubble. So it's like positioning versus risk of failing leadership. So yeah, I think I'm gonna give this one to Josh, but I'm not voting hard on that side. I think it could be either way.
And I also just want to chime in to give Chris props for taking the crown of the Wizard King. One of my favorite items.
All right,
Okay, table 7.
I think it's me actually. Yeah.
Yeah, Josh Land and then Andy.
Yeah, this is a list I know well.
Pretty. And I know this vampire list pretty well.
Yeah. You want to talk about it?
Yeah. So my
That's all he
vampire.
does.
I've been playing. So this year I've kind of tabled my orcs and goblins while they're reworking the book, and I've been focusing on vampire. I've been playing a lot of Lamia and independent lists for the most part this year, and I just thought the independent list seemed a little bit more fun to play. And I know typically our meta does not have a lot of cannons, and I think I only saw one in the whole tournament.
one.
So obviously I don't want to see cannons, much with the dragon. But I got the independent master. He's he's got the extra range, occultism, which is just so good for the grave calls, breath of corruption, hand of glory, all that good stuff. He's going to be in the Baronite unit typically, and he can heal them with True Thirst. The zombie dragon vampire, this guy can really, really put in some work. I mean, if he's in combat with one character, we're talking like 7 strength 6 attacks just from the vampire alone, double wounds, towering presence, huge unit of skeletons, Legion standard, just a couple, zombies, direwolves, dark coach there to kind of help with shrieking horror marches and other just kind of stuff like that. Although the dark coach can really hold up some stuff and put in some work. Bear Knights, they're tough. They're not going to roll you over on the charge, but they don't go down easily. Shrieking horror, vampire knights, I like the vampire knights. And I was kind of thinking winged reapers or vampire knights here for this last slot. I went with vamp knights to have the extra scoring units. So this gives me 2 what I consider really, really solid mobile scoring units, and then 3 other kind of scoring units that just standard infantry. So that's the list. The characters and the swift death category are where all my work is going to be put in, basically. And so that'll be the hope. And then I guess Rob, I'll let you go on the Sylvan Elf list.
So he's got that avatar, which is, he'll set it up so it's designed for your character to come in with the dueling specialty. I mean, he's never dealt with a vampire count with Monster Hunter on a dragon. So
I don't think that's a good matchup.
no, it's not a good matchup for him, but he does have druidism, which he's really good at slinging those spells around. And then he's got that Cosmo Adept. He's really good at the mobile, the maneuvering game. The thing that's going to annoy you the most, or at least what annoys me the most, is a unit that actually a lot of people don't take, but those Kestrel Knights are going to be around behind you, chewing up some of your smaller scoring units and stuff like that, just,
Mhm,
you know, being
mhm.
behind you. And then meanwhile, the Sylvan Sentinels are shooting. He's got a lot of shooting,
Yeah,
which, you know, Sylvan Elves don't
course.
always do. But yeah, his big strategy is come get me with that Avatar of Nature, and you've got the tool for that. So that one
Yeah,
should be interesting.
yeah.
He's relatively new to the game. I mean, he's really only been playing hardcore for less than a year,
Mhm.
but you know, he's my son. He's ridiculously smart. And when he throws when he decides to be interested in something, just get out of the way.
Well, we know we
So,
love having new players, so that's
yeah.
no, that's great. I
So
mean,
it'll be a fun one. I think you'll have, he will present challenges for you that you won't expect.
Will, so let's get Will or Tim because
Will's played with him, I
we're
think.
biased about this matchup.
I've-
So what, Will and Tim, what are your thoughts?
Not I know wood elves, but some of the stuff that he's using, Tom doesn't really use, like Kestrel Knights and Blade Dancers. So I have a hard time really grasping their potential. I just haven't seen them on the board. But like it's been pointed out, I think that vampire on the dragon is gonna hunt down the Avatar of Nature and take out a big part of the punch that this army has. The Thicket Beasts are still no joke, but I think that the vampire counts will take them down.
Mhm.
And then it's just a matter of cleaning up some of this other stuff, assuming you can catch it, which is always difficult. But for the main dragon versus avatar likely scenario, I'm gonna go with the vampire counts.
Mhm.
Yeah, he's worried about that Monster Hunter
I don't like
vampire.
playing against that thing either.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a lot of people with, our meta has typically had a lot of large monsters.
Mhm.
And so that was very much on my mind when adding Monster Hunter there. And then also Cursed Medallion for 30 points or 35 points.
right. That's
That
brutal.
that just says, okay, whoever your biggest and baddest character is, I reroll them to hit
I
him.
reroll everything. Yeah.
And
That's
if you're, and I do double wounds potentially. So like this model could actually could go head to head with like a Scourge or even something like that, as well, and certainly any character on foot. But it's, could be shot down. Cannons are a concern, of course. And I can always use the Shrieking Horror as a shield, like just kind of like shield wall block the zombie dragon if I did hypothetically have to go against something with lots of shooting that would potentially hit the zombie dragon. I don't think that, the Sylvan Sentinels with the poison arrows, the occultism, I got a 30-inch pentagram of pain, the breath of corruption, a lot of different ways of kind of poking down some of these small elf units. So I'm feeling okay about. The Blade Dancers are scary if they're at full health. That's, I'm assuming that he's got some characters in there as well. So that unit can definitely put in some work if I can't poke them down. But I gotta just be careful who I fight with them.
I'll chime in and say that I think the list, I think Andy has an uphill battle. And I think the scenario and deployment, he has an uphill battle.
Mhm.
But the last time I played Andy was the same scenario, the table quarters.
Mhm.
And turn one, he lost his Demon Prince, and turn two, he lost his Wizard Master, might have been flip-flopped. But I thought it was game over, and he came back and beat me from that. So Andy is, even though he's a new player, he's no joke, and
Mhm.
he can play the psychological game. Like he doesn't let an early loss like that affect his game, you know. So I think he's going to take it in stride, even though he has a list disadvantage and a scenario disadvantage here.
Mhm. Well,
So for my prediction, as much as I hate to predict against my son, I just don't see what he's going to do with that that count on the dragon, and especially with the Cursed Medallion. I mean, you'll just pick the avatar, and then
of course, I mean,
yeah,
there's nothing in
yeah,
the list I would pick
no,
other than
it's
the
a real
Avatar.
problem. So I'm gonna have to go with you on this one, John.
All right, who do you pick as my MVP?
Oh, the
The
that
vampire.
count, the
zombie
one who's gonna
dragon.
take out the avatar. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I have to go with myself. I mean, but I think, you know, I mean, I think I'm gonna pick a surprise MVP. I mean, I think the zombie dragon will do what it needs to do this game, and at a minimum, keep the avatar of nature on its toes and scared of getting, you know, into combat. You know, the occultism master, I think he's gonna do some good things. You know, the magic is gonna be a constant threat, but I'm actually gonna go with the dark coach. I think the dark coach is a really rough unit for a lot of these just shooty little elf, these little mid-size elf units. It's very hard to bring down. It heals itself very pretty easily. Impact hits, you know, a lot of other strength 5 attacks. So, you know, other than like the thicket beasts, and of course the avatar, there's a lot of stuff in there that wouldn't enjoy fighting the dark coach. So I'm gonna go that as a surprise MVP pick. I think it'll do some good work.
I'll vote for you as well, Josh. And I think your Barrow Knights they have a 2-up save, right?
They have 2 up, and yeah, and vampire master goes in there with true thirst for healing. Usually we'll also have hand of glory at his disposal for extra defense if needed.
And do they have Ghost Step, or is that a different unit?
Yeah, they have ghost step, and so does the vampire on the steed. So, you know, very useful, right? You know, no dangerous terrain, can move through any terrain they want, and it can move through impassable terrain as long as they don't end their movement in it.
I think that'll be your MVP.
Yeah. Okay.
Table 8, or
Yeah.
we have Tim still?
No, I was
Tim
very
already
brief
kinda
on this
said it.
one.
Yeah, VC on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, table 8, we have Henry from up north, Sacramento, and then Tim
And me.
here. So I'll talk about Henry's list. I'm kind of like, I'm happy to see his Equitane, and I'm glad he's doing something new and different, but I'm so disappointed that I don't get to see his
Vampires.
his vampires are amazing. He's got the zombie dragon. That's like one of the best models I've ever seen. It's huge.
Yeah, he's the colossal. Yeah.
Did you hear about how he got that?
No.
He asked Alex to print it for him and it came in too big and he decided just to use it anyway.
So there was a guy that would come down to the Orange County big GTs way back in 8th edition. And if you guys are familiar with the game Skyrim, that game's all about dragons. And there was like this limited edition dragon you got with it that was like 3 feet tall. And this guy built a display board around that dragon. And that is what Henry's dragon kind of remind me of, but it's pretty amazing. But I'll talk about Henry's list real quick. He's kind of got folk heroes, lots of peasants, a couple units of knights. He's got the friars, lanterns, and a sacred reliquary, and then 1 scorpion. So he's kind of leaning more into the peasant theme, which is cool to see. And then Tim, do you want to talk about your list?
Sure. It's Infernal Dwarves, and it's, you know, I'm really trying to play with the flaming synergy that Rob loves so much. Yeah, I've got an Overlord on a Great Bull, made to fight big monsters pretty much. 2 Adepts, one's a Lamasu, the other one's in a chariot who's also built for combat. A huge block of Infernal Warriors with great weapons and blunderbuss that the battle standard joins. It just kind of moves up and is really hard to shift, and if you don't get in combat with it, it'll just start pelting you. Vassal levies just to make things flammable. Disciples of Lugar are still kind of an experiment for me. In general, I like them. I kind of thinned out the unit a little bit, pulled the characters out of it because it was too many points for what it did. Vassal cavalry are always good. They're deceptively offensive, and they also make things flammable. A flamethrower because I hate elves. And then the 2 citizen giants. Don't know why they don't get a whole lot of use. Maybe it's just competition in the army book, but they've been performing incredibly well. They're much harder to kill than a normal giant, and they just sit there and fight you. Especially when you give them parry with a tower shield. They've been performing very well, and they can tear things off the board. I play Equitane a good amount with Lou, but he does not play army builds like this. On paper, I feel like I have the tools to take this one down, but Henry's a very good player, and he's very tricky, and I don't trust it. So I really don't know exactly how I'm going to approach this one. He outshoots me, so I still have to kind of run up and get him.
Yeah, you can trust that every one of Henry's lists he could write a dissertation about. Like, he knows all the ins and outs,
Yep.
he knows all the synergy. He's put a lot of thought into it. So even though this looks like a new army that we haven't seen him play, he's definitely not going to be fresh with it.
Right. And he knows Infernal Dwarfs very well too.
Yeah, this is a game, again, would be one of the ones I would vote to watch if I was spectating. I think, Henry and Tim are both great players. I'm very, very familiar with Tim's list. I played close, either this list or close to it many times. He almost always beats me. It's very difficult games. I think so. My bias might be there because I just know how tough Tim's list is to deal with. So I would go ID. And I think that I'm going to say your Giants are going to be MVPs this game. They're just he's got a lot of infantry. So the Giants are going to be even more effective against that infantry with getting all those stomps in.
Obviously I'm rooting for
I don't want to
Henry.
hear you.
I'm rooting for Henry hard. But I like Henry's list. I like the fact that he is, basically turning the whole Kingdom of Equitane thing on its head by having a huge number of peasants, including those folk heroes, which I think are one of the more undercosted things in the game, considering what they're capable of and all the toys you can add to them. That said, that incendiary thing that you can do and there's a lot of low res over here. It's hard for me to pick this one. So I'm going to go with my heart and say I hope the King of Equitane does an enormous win.
All right, well, Tim, what do you think your MVP will be, Tim? Obviously, you're picking yourself to win. I take it.
Oh, I don't know about this one. I think that an MVP for me, if I win, in any game that I win, the MVP is almost always either the Giants or the Vassal Cavalry. So they just always overperform ridiculously. I think that I don't remember a lot. The Knights, the quests I know are fearless, but I don't think anything else is. I know the big levies block is essentially fearless because it's minimized roll. But I think the terror might come back and hurt him a little bit. Which again plays into the Giants. The Overlord is terror as well. I just don't trust his army.
I think he's going to be shooting at those Giants because they're going to be the easiest thing for him to shoot at.
They have a 3-up armor though.
And the one with the shield is soft cover.
Oh, okay.
Well, my vote is for Tim, and I think the MVP is going to be that 900-point unit of Blunderbuss Warriors, because they're too big of a unit and too tough, I think, for the lowborn levies to handle. You just have too many of them. If it was more of an MSU Infernal Dwarfs, then that would be a better matchup for Henry, but I think that big unit is just too much.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to kill that unit, and with a BSB in there as well.
One thing that's not going to work for me though is the scenario. Only having 3 scoring units.
Is the Vassal Cavalry scoring?
No, the levies and the 2 dwarf infantry are.
Yeah, so you're not fast.
I mean,
Oh, slow.
I'm infernal dwarfs. I'm fast.
Well, yeah. but-
Hmm. All right, well, table 9, we're go down 3 more games.
Table 9, Anton playing Aquitaine, and then Daryl from up north playing Dwarvenholds.
Love that army.
Anton's gonna have a hell of a time with this. Simply because there's so much, like there's 3 unbreakable seeker units.
Mhm.
And he's just gonna sick those on his infantry units and just then get counter charges and stuff off. I don't, it's gonna be really hard for him to deal with this.
Well, looking at Daryl's army, you know, it's the army that every dwarf player kind of secretly wants to play. You know, the 100% Vanguard seeker list. I think I've penned one out 3 or 4 times, never actually put it together, but its weakness is shooting, and Anton doesn't have the shooting necessary. I mean, he's got the 2 units of archers, but I don't think that's going to be enough to really pick those Slayer. They're going to be, you know, on him on turn 2. And those Dragon Seekers are just going to destroy stuff.
Yeah.
He's got 3 and they're all fully equipped out. What do they have? They all have quickenings. They're all agility 8. No, one of them doesn't have quickening.
Oh, oh yeah.
You know, the +1 to hit stuff, and
the Grim Resolve one will just eat the infantry units.
yeah.
He'll end up with what, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 9 attacks.
I mean, and you look at his points, he's got 2 other big blocks, Clan Warriors and Greybeards. I mean,
yeah, and they both have great weapons which can fight the. Well, he doesn't. Anton doesn't really have knights. He's got
Really.
1 unit of knights of heavy cavalry, anyways. But the great weapons will get through that. The knights of the quest just won't be able to kill enough dwarves.
yeah.
I
It looks like
like-
a tough matchup for the
yeah,
kingdom.
I like
here.
dwarves on this one.
You know, it's really hard. Where are the points coming from? If you're, you know, I certainly wouldn't want to play this dwarven list.
That's the problem with every dwarf list, is where you're going to get points off of it.
Yeah,
That's their
yeah.
greatest asset.
Yeah, I mean, you got the unbreakable. You got to kill every last model of those things. You got 2 big blocks. You know, it's just it's hard to get.
What-
points on.
He does only have 2 scoring units though, right?
Are seekers scoring?
I don't know.
You know, one thing though I'm looking at is that Daryl doesn't have a battle standard, which obviously the seekers don't need it. But those 2 big blocks, one bad roll could do it. Are they dwarven holds? Are seekers scoring? I don't remember.
They are not.
I wouldn't think they would be. Yeah. So he has 2 scoring units. He'll have the smiths in each scoring unit, which
Yeah.
but still he doesn't have things like the oath stone, you know, all out of those toys. So he has to win.
Yeah,
You know, he's
a
got
lot
to
of
win,
times
right?
he's either gonna lose objective or
Yeah,
or
I've watched
draw
a few.
objective.
I've watched a few games that he's been in, and he either it's like he wins hard or he kind of loses hard. Like he has to wipe the other army pretty hard to get the points. That should be interesting.
Yeah. All
I
right.
mean, Anton's like me in that, you know, he's coming to play games.
But you're gonna say he's bitter.
Well, I mean, if you've met him,
I know Anton.
yeah. I mean, he's not as bitter as I am, but you know, give him another 20 years. So
All right, predictions or any other, you got any other comments on this one?
I'm going dwarves. Can I just say seekers as the
yeah,
MVP?
that's what I was
Sure.
gonna say too. Just any
Yeah.
one of them really, or all of them. Yeah.
Are we all dwarfs on this one?
Yeah, sorry, Anton.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup. I mean, this is a tough matchup for anybody. Like I said,
Yeah.
I don't want to play this, but
A Wood Elf player might like
I mean,
this.
if you have a ton of shooting,
Mhm.
that's it though.
Yeah.
Table
If
10?
you have a mobile avoidance list, this
Right.
he can't touch you. He has no.
I think Andy's list actually would do well against this. But
Yeah, elves in general, I think, would do okay.
You gotta keep those that avatar away from those monster seekers.
Yeah,
yeah,
but that's not that hard.
they're so slow.
Mhm. Yeah, that's true.
Although he could
So
spread
slow.
them out, maybe trap you, but you'd shoot them down.
Yeah.
All right, table 10.
All right, so we have Matt Beam, who is
Mhm.
Orange County guy, and then Rob. And Matt,
Yeah.
I'm already kind of mad at Matt because his list is it was twice as long as everybody else's. And I had to reformat it a few times, and I had to delete units and reformat it. But I gotta
Yeah.
applaud him for taking as many units as possible.
Yeah. So I could speak to the orcs and goblins pretty well. It was for those of you who don't follow orcs and goblins much. There was a recent push after they basically changed Crown of Autocracy. There was a push by the orcs and goblins community to say, hey, my all goblin army sucks now. I can't play on discipline 8, basically. And surprisingly, they agree. They're like, yeah, okay. So there's a new rule where if you do not play any orcs in your list, you get +1 discipline on your goblin general. You can still play trolls and stuff, but you just can't use a single orc. So that's what Matt's doing. And if you look at the ETC list, there's a lot of guys playing all goblins. And I think there's a lot of viability here. He's got, good magic, pyro, thaumaturgy, can definitely put some range damage in. Tons of goblin, kind of shooting stuff going on. He's got the typical cowboy in there, 1+ reroll armor goblin guy, just kind of running around doing his thing. The mad gits. I really like those 30 blocks of common goblins with bows. I'm guessing he's going to line formation those. That's 24 shots each. They can put in some work. Some creepers. They got some more, just lots of bows. Nasher Dashers are kind of a fast little mobile unit on the side. Nasher herds. The list. While I like the list, I think that I do think it's too much personally. I would have loved to have seen some more war machines in here, some skewers, maybe another git launcher, in lieu of like maybe a Nasher herd unit, or the scrap wagons. I think those would have really gone a long way. You can stack in about 4 or 5 war machines as an orcs and goblins player for only 500 points or something. Very, and when you need a 4+ to hit and you're rolling 5 or 6 per turn, you're bound to get some hits. But I like his list overall. I think scenario 1 is going to be tough for him. Just how do you fit everything here? Basically, it would be a concern of mine. So that's Rob. I'll let you.
Oh, I mean, I'm new to vampires. I've only played maybe 5 or 6 games. I mean, I'm coming to this basically to get games in, so I can get experience. Initially, I was just going to buy enough models to make this a Strigoi list, which I really wanted to do. But then I got my credit card, and now I have an ungodly number of vampires that I've bought like the last month and a half. So I was going through, I don't care for independent. I like the thematic aspects of the bloodlines. And I have this really cool female vampire that I bought from Raging Heroes. So I decided to go with Lamia. Plus, I just kind of like the whole Lamia thing. So my list is basically built around the idea of that skeleton unit's going to be hard to move. I can make it pretty big, pretty fast. The Lamia vampires got commandments, so they're offense, defense 6. So I've got a fair amount of magic. I've got a Master of Evo. I have 3 potential wizards. I've got a lot of magic options to play with. Apparently, I don't know if from what I hear, some of the best chaff in the game is those dire wolves.
Yes.
They could hold up almost anything for one turn, even one of your big scary monsters, by challenging out with the champion dog, which I think is kind of the concept of a dog champion. I think is pretty funny, but nonetheless, there it is. So, and then I took units I like. So I like the Dark Coach. I like the Court of the Damned. Plus, it has that 4-up Aegis save, and really will running into that skeleton unit, if I can get everything where it's supposed to be, is going to be tough. I put the Barrow Guard unit in to be the bunker for the Barrow King and the Necromancer, but after it seems like it might be a little small, even with Stubborn for an undead unit to survive. So I'm gonna have to rethink maybe how I'm gonna do that. Vampire Knights are awesome, and they don't need somebody nearby to squire them around, so they can really be off to one side. Stalker standard means I'm not going to be losing points, so I can just burn them through things. So we'll see what happens. In this matchup, I have a plan. I think I'm going to try and sit on 2 of the table quarters with a couple of big scoring units and tell him to come at me. And then I'm not that afraid of the shooting. He's got a lot of it, but most of the stuff that I have that's killable, I can either bring back, or I'm not going to lose that many points because there's going to be a lot of points in that skeleton unit. So I don't know. We'll see. I've played Matt before, but the last time we played, I had ogres and he had, I think, Sylvan Elves. So it's a completely different matchup. I think the scenario favors me a little bit, but I'd be interested to see what you guys think about that.
I'll let Will and Tim go first and then give you my thoughts, I guess.
Still trying to process Matt's list.
Yeah, a lot
I
going
think
on.
Matt has a few plays, right? He's got all that shooting, and you could do flaming swords, but that's just one spell. And if he doesn't have that, then the shooting is really not that effective against your list. It's a bunch of strength 3. And then I think deployment is going to be a big problem for Matt, and he might have to spend a turn or 2 getting everything repositioned. And by that point, I think the vampires are already set up. So I'm edging towards Rob on this one.
Mhm.
And my only worries for Rob, though, are the Nasher Dashers, Nasher Herds, Nasher Wrecking Team.
Yeah, I'm worried about those too, because I don't have any shooting to get rid of them. That's what you do with those, is you shoot them, and I have nothing to shoot them with.
You can throw a bat swarm at the Nasher Wrecking Team or a direwolf unit at the Nasher Wrecking Team.
Right.
And if you move into it, it dies automatically. Right. So, you know, but yeah, some of the other stuff might be an issue, because the Nasher Dashers and Nasher Herd, you get a lot of strength 5 attacks in before they die, and their biggest weakness is shooting, which we don't have as
we do not have. Yeah.
You know, I like your list, Rob. I've played some Lamia lists that are very similar. I know you and I chatted a little bit. You know, the biggest concern I have with your list, and you already said it, is I think the Barrow Guardian is just too small to really, you know, be able to do much. So that would have been the only place that I'm like, you know, that skeleton unit is going to be very tough to deal with all the buffs going on and everything you got with the Court of the Damned, all that stuff. But other than the skeleton unit, you know, there's nothing in your that I think where, you know, other than the Vampire Knights too, that can do a lot of killing would be my concern.
Yeah,
but
I'm hoping to win a lot of games 13 to 7.
Yeah,
I don't think I'm going to get any 20s, but I'm hoping that I can, grab some objectives and do some point denial, and that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, I think I would give this one to you. I think that just we talked about it. The scenario is really, I think, going to be really awkward. I'd love to see how Matt's board looks on turn 1.
I'll take a picture.
That's just, I mean, my gosh, my vampire army is half the size probably unit wise, and I've played one practice game with scenario 1, and even I was struggling to fit stuff in there, so that'll be really interesting how that looks.
And
But
I'm
yeah,
also hoping some of his goblins are mine, so I'm hoping that they'll be like, they'll remember.
they'll
That's what I'm
remember
hoping.
who.
That could be good or bad.
Yeah, I know. Because I am bitter and unpleasant, right, Tim?
I think you will make a great dwarf player.
Oh, I started with dwarves. I played dwarves for years, and in fact,
See, that's something we have in common.
my
Why not just switch over to Infernal Dwarfs? Just
because I have pride, morals, integrity. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, so I'll say VC, and also, I'm going to give the MVP. I mean, I guess to your general, your commandment, general, and the skeleton unit.
So begrudgingly, I think I'm going to go with vampire counts as well. I think the game itself will probably be pretty close, and I think, like you said, you're better situated to take the objective. He's going to be stumbling over himself with its setup, which is in general a problem with goblins. But I just want to throw out that you don't have to play orcs and goblins to play an only goblin list. Hobgoblins are still out there. I think Will allows them.
Mm-hmm. True. What are you thinking, Will, on this?
Vampire Covenant.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
All right. I think we got one more to round it off for the night.
Yep. So that's me, the ringer. And obviously if anybody drops from the tournament, then I'll sit back and have to play. Or if I can get some of my other guys that aren't able to commit to the whole weekend just for a game, they'll of course bring their list. But I'll be playing whoever's at the bottom of the list in terms of points. And when you play the ringer, you can only get a minimum of 10 points. You can't get less than that. Otherwise, people just get stuck at the bottom. So my list is, I just picked a list that I've been playing for 6 months now because I want to be able to play something that I don't have to think about so I can attend to the tournament. But it's a big unit of spears, a big unit of sword masters, and then a lot of small units and a lot of shooting. 2 reapers, a big unit of Queen's Guard. There's a Phoenix, there's Knights of Rama, 2 reaver units, Lancers. So lots of small scoring units, and then there's 2 big units. And the trick with the spears is that I've got 2 different spells that can bonus strength, so that you can really spam that, and you can receive a charge with the spears like normal, but you can also charge with them, and they can be surprisingly killy on the charge up to strength 4, strength 5. And so I've had a lot of success with this list. It's really easy to play at this point, so that's kind of why I took it.
It's annoying as hell, this list. Yeah.
And then Brian, he was a late ad. He was going on a family trip, and I guess everything got canceled last minute, so he was able to go to the Joust, which I'm really excited for. He's one of kind of our guys from down this area, and he hasn't been playing a lot, but he's bringing his Warriors list, and it's very similar to a lot of the stuff he's brought in the past. And if one of you guys wants to talk through it.
Yeah, I mean, it looks very similar. A lot of similarities to, I think, what Carrie's list. I see the Doom Lord, really hard to kill Doom Lord, Death Cheater. I mean, he's meant to really hold and give that stubborn to the Forsworn unit. That's a really challenging unit to deal with. He even threw Obsidian Rock in for good measure. So your magic is going to be tougher on them. So that's just a tough unit to do much with. The Forsaken Ones, Battle Shrine, kind of a standard Zealot's Banner warrior unit that with Greed, that's pretty standard type of warrior unit. I think we often see looks like a couple adepts, couple Dark Chariot adepts that actually one in particular looks like he can actually hit pretty hard if you don't watch out.
They can.
I mean, just kind of looks like, just a solid all-around warriors list. Of course, wants to get in combat right away with some decent support magic once it does.
3 chariots is pretty tough, especially that chosen chariot's really hard to deal with.
One part I like about his list is that he gave his Forsworn great weapons. Unfortunately, in this matchup, it's one of the armies you don't need great weapons to fight.
Right.
Yeah,
I just see the shooting and the agility just picking apart the Warriors.
yeah, it's just not
Yeah.
enough magic, not enough magic. I mean, there's only like a little bit of buffing magic, couple magic missiles, maybe. No shooting, of course, from Warriors. So yeah, I really think that highborn elves look to be the favorite here on
We'll just have to ask, Will a lot of rules questions. over
I'm
the course
predicting a
of the day.
10-10.
Yeah, I think,
True. Yeah, so do you guys want to, I'm thinking do you want to round it out? Each of us predicting who will be in the top 3 as a final kind of guess, not necessarily first, second, third, but just top 3 by battle points of all the players.
well, I'll go out on a limb and take Josh.
The
But
hell you say?
Stuart, there's 3 of
Yeah,
us.
okay, then I'm just gonna take Josh, to increase my odds of getting it right. No, I'm taking Josh Stewart, because again, you gotta beat him until somebody beats him, I can't not take Josh Stewart, so, after that, I don't know a lot of these people that well. The people I know well, like Will's not playing, and, so I'm just gonna say Josh for Stewart. I can't really pick the others because I don't know. There's a lot of scary stuff here.
Yeah,
For
I'll
me,
go.
so.
I mean, I'll do the one obvious choice, Stewart, of course. I'm actually, I really think, and I'm biased, as one of my friends, but Tim, I'm gonna go with you. I think your list is a very solid all-around list, and I think you have a good chance if the dice are slightly in your favor. I could see you top 3. And then I think that, just to mix it up, Micah would be the easy choice just because he's such a good player. But I'm gonna go Daryl with his dwarf seeker list. That's a really tough list.
I'm thinking that one. I'm just looking. There's not a ton of shooting in this tournament.
Mhm. So those are my top. I'm gonna say top 3: Josh Stewart, Tim, Daryl.
I'm flattered, but I hope you're ready for disappointment.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do I think? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna take the coward's way out. I think Josh Stewart will podium at some point. Hopefully third.
Let someone else win, for a change.
I think Chris's army can do really well. Although some of these grindy Warriors armies could be a problem for him. If he runs into Carrie's army, that could be annoying. I'm gonna go Josh and Chris, although seems like a bad pick because they're playing each other round 1. I don't know who the third is. It's not gonna be an undead player.
Oh, bummer.
I don't know. Let me think on this one for a minute for the other one.
All right.
Maybe one of the dwarf armies.
Yeah, I went Daryl on mine. I like his list.
I think Devon's is a little bit more well-rounded, and although I've always dream of playing the Vengeance Seeker Vanguard list, I think that Devon's will, over the course of many games, perform better.
I think Devin will end up with a solid score. I don't know if he'll be high enough to be top 3, but I think he will definitely end up with a very solid score. Yeah.
It's always one of the drawbacks for some of those well-rounded dwarf lists is they don't table people very well. Yeah. Maybe.
Okay, your time is up. Who's next?
Yeah, that's fine. Patty's bitter.
Yeah, you
go
can
set something on fire, Tim. We'll wait for you.
So who's left? Will?
Well,
yeah, I should probably abstain since I'm the TO, but I gotta throw in Garrett as a dark horse.
Yeah,
it's his list. He's got the pyro and alchemy, so he can deal with warriors, he can deal with elves. He's got a lot of poison, and I think his fighting bricks are just tough enough to go toe to toe with some of the other
Mhm,
scary stuff. So I want to include Garrett in there.
mhm,
And then I think
sure.
Chris, Micah, Josh, those are consistent finishers in the top of tournaments. So they're just kind of on skill, they're up there. But in lists, I think Garrett's list matches well with the meta of this tournament.
Mhm,
And plus then you won't have to hear about it on the ride home, so.
mhm.
All
Yeah,
right.
no, I could see it for sure.
Well.
All right.
Okay,
Well, thank you guys. Looking forward to playing certainly and seeing you all, and should be a lot of fun. So, yeah.
all right, thanks,
All
Josh.
right. Yeah, thanks.
All right. I'll send you guys the file.
All right. Time for bed.
All
Good
right.
night.
Good
All
night.
right.